Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. I am getting ready to make dinner, and we are going to use some of these beautiful eggplants I harvested to make some moussaka. I have never made this before, but I've had it in restaurants and I loved it, and I've always wanted to try and make it myself. So this seemed like a good opportunity. But as you guys know, I am dairy free. And so I went looking for a recipe that had a dairy free bechamel sauce on top. And I found one that looks fantastic. It has a cashew based bechamel. So I've got my kettle on here coming to a boil, and I need 2 cups of cashews. We're going to soak them in boiling water for about half an hour. And there's a missing measuring cup. I have a tendency to leave them in bags and then I can't find them. I will not leave my cup measure in there. This is getting really close, so we'll be able to pour it over our cashew pieces here in just a minute. I also have my oven preheating to 440 degrees because we need to slice up our eggplant and get it in there and roasting. My water is boiling, so we'll get that poured over our cashews. And then they just need to soak for 30 minutes. I washed my eggplants up. The recipe calls for 4 medium eggplants, and it says just to top them and then slice them long ways into about 1/2 inch slices. So that is what I'm going to do. This eggplant has some less than desirable spots on it, so I am going to get that off. I am changing this recipe up just a little bit, as I find is often the case when I'm looking for dairy-free recipes. A lot of the ones I think look the best happen to be vegan. But y'all, I'm not really interested in eating soy mince, which is what it calls for the ragu layer of this. And so we're going to use ground beef, which is more traditional, ground beef or ground lamb. If I had ground lamb, I would definitely go that route, but I already had ground beef on hand, so that's what we're going to go with today. And honestly, I'm not even sure where you would get soy mince. I don't know if you have to go to a specialty store for that or what, but not something I'm super familiar with. So these are actually going to go into the oven at 440 for about 25 minutes. And looking at the directions, we don't do anything to them. We don't season them up. We don't salt them or anything. We're just looking to soften them up. That seems a little bit strange to me, but all of the other components have a lot of flavor. The sauce that's going to go on here, not really sure about these pieces with the skin. We may have to peel those. But if you're not familiar with moussaka, it is a Greek dish, and it has layers of potato and eggplant. It has a layer of a ragu that's a tomato-based meat sauce, but the seasonings are different than you would expect with an Italian sauce. I'm blanking at the moment. Let me double check my recipe here because I don't want to tell you wrong. Has cinnamon and nutmeg and clove. Really good flavors for this time of year, actually. So it does have oregano, but we're not adding like parsley and basil and things that you think of when you think of an Italian ragu. And then that gets layered on top of the vegetables. And then it has a layer of bechamel. So I've had the traditional kind that has a dairy-based bechamel, but this cashew bechamel looks amazing. And I'm really interested to try it because I'm thinking it could be used in other applications as well, not just in our moussaka. I'm going to get a baking sheet out with some parchment paper and just spread these all out. This might actually take multiple cookie sheets. I don't know. This seems like more eggplant than we need because the recipe only calls for one layer and we're making a 9 by 13. So we'll do something else with it if we have too much. All right, so this is what fit on my baking sheet. I still have a few extra pieces. I think the rest of my eggplants I'm going to make baba ganoush with and then freeze it so that we can have it for whenever we want some baba ganoush, we can just thaw it. But I might go ahead and roast these pieces up and scrape them out to go with the rest of that. But this is going to go in our oven. 25 minutes at 440. I've got a pot of water on here to boil. We are going to parboil some potato slices here in a minute. And I need to get going on the ragu. So I'm adding some oil to this pot. I've got it heated to medium, and we're going to add a finely chopped red onion. We're just going to saute this onion for about 5 minutes until it starts to soften up, turn translucent, and then we will add our garlic as well. But we don't want to add our garlic now because it has more sugar and it tends to burn faster, and burnt garlic tastes bitter. So we will wait and add that until our onions are farther along. Our onions are looking good, so I am going to add 4 minced cloves of garlic. It's been about a minute and that garlic has already become really fragrant in there. So now I am going to add my ground beef. I chose to do my onions first because sometimes I find that when I add them to the cooked beef, they don't get as tender as I would like. So I thought softening them up first would work better. I have my chopper tool here. We'll start breaking our beef down. I think it's still partially frozen. I've been quick thawing it in cold water, but not completely thawed yet. We'll get it there. It'll just take a little longer to cook here in the pan. While our beef is cooking, let's get our potatoes all sliced up. Our potatoes call for being quite a bit thinner than the eggplant. The eggplant called for 1/2 inch. The potatoes call for 0.2 of an inch. So I'm just very carefully trying to slice these very thin. I cut off a little bit of all of the potatoes so they would stand nicely for me. And we're just thinly slicing these. I think if you wanted to, you could do this with a mandolin and it would probably be more uniform than what I'm getting, but I think even if they're not perfectly 0.2 of an inch, they will still be delicious. Our eggplant is all nice and roasted, starting to brown. That's what we're looking for. And our ground beef is all browned up. Our onions are nice and tender. So now we can start adding some of our seasonings. We need 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. We need 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. We need 1/4 teaspoon of clove. And then I want to get all of these stirred in with the bit of fat we have because that will help infuse the flavor more deeply into the dish. All of those spices will release more flavor and fat. Smells so good. Now we need a teaspoon of oregano, a pinch of red pepper flake. I'm just gonna Sprinkle a little bit there. And we need a bay leaf, a teaspoon of salt, black pepper to taste, and last but certainly not least, we are going to add some tomatoes. The recipe calls for tinned tomatoes. This is clearly written by someone from the British English speaking world, but I looked it up. It called for 400-gram jars of tinned tomatoes. My pint jars of my home crushed tomatoes are about right. So we are gonna mix this all in, and it's in the ingredient list, but I'm not seeing it in the directions. We're gonna add about half a cup of red wine. So we are just gonna bring this up to a boil and then let it simmer away until the tomatoes have completely disintegrated and it's just a nice thick sauce. It may take a little bit longer for me because my home canned tomatoes were relatively soupy, but that's okay. I still have the bechamel to make and the potatoes to boil. While our ragu is cooking down over there, we can make our bechamel. So I have those 2 cups of cashew pieces drained of the hot water. And we're gonna get them into our blender here. We're gonna add 1 1/4 cups of fresh water to that. Then we start adding the fun things. So we need 1 clove of garlic. We need 4 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which is also a 1/4 cup. 3 1/2 tablespoons. Then we need a heaped tablespoon of white miso paste. I have never used miso paste, but I have seen it show up a lot in dairy-free options where you're trying to make something taste like dairy. So this is all new to me. Now we need half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and salt and pepper to taste. I'm going to start just with a pinch of salt, crack some pepper in here, and we'll get this blended up and see what it tastes like. It is so nice and creamy. So I'm going to grab a spoon and we will give this a taste and see if we need to adjust anything. That's delicious. I think it could maybe use a little bit more salt and pepper, but the nutmeg is coming through really strongly, so I don't need any more of that. Grab a clean spoon and we will test that again. It's so good. That miso and nutritional yeast together, they really add a bit of a cheesy flavor to this that is just kind of surprising. So right before we put this onto our assembled moussaka, there's one more thing we need to add to it. We're going to add a heaping tablespoon of tapioca starch and blend this up, and then we will pour it onto the assembled moussaka. Our ragu is cooking down nicely. You can see how much it's reduced already. So I am going to get our potato slices blanched. They only need to cook for 5 minutes, and then we'll drain them and let them cool a little bit. And then we can start assembling our moussaka. While the potatoes are boiling, I am going to get some oil in a bowl along with some garlic powder. The author of the recipe said this is an optional step, but where's my thing? But she said she likes to brush the potatoes with some minced garlic and oil. I used all of my garlic in the various elements, and so I'm just going to use some garlic powder because I think it sounds really good. I think our ragu is getting close. And our potatoes are almost done, so we will be assembling this in no time. All of our ingredients are ready to go. So I am gonna get this 9x13 oiled up. The potatoes are still pretty warm, so hopefully, they don't burn me too bad. We're gonna do, it looks like 2 layers of potatoes. And if for some reason I have more layers, we'll do more layers. Our dish is full. That's fine by me. Means we'll have more leftovers. I think we'll overlap them so there's not as much of a gap. You can throw these little pieces in here somewhere. There's little gaps. Now that we've got a layer of potatoes, we're going to add that garlic oil on top. Just slightly brush it on. Try not to displace our potatoes. We're going to add a sprinkling of oregano on top and then do another layer of potatoes. Now we are going to add our eggplant slices. These did shrink a little bit while I was cooking them, so we might fit them all, but this seems like a lot of eggplant for one layer. I am going to break some eggplant in pieces just so we can squeeze it in there. Let it overlap a little bit. And that piece ended up extra thin. So I think maybe we'll pop another piece right there. And then I just actually only have one left. So this turned out just right. We're going to sprinkle a little bit more oregano on top of our eggplant, or aubergine as the recipe refers to it. And then we're going to start adding our ragu. I did give this a taste. I can't remember if I filmed that or not, but it tastes amazing. I didn't actually feel the need to do anything extra to it. So the ratios were right on the money. It does say you should have some leftover ragu. I don't think that's going to be the case for me. Maybe because my tomatoes were so runny and I cooked all that liquid down. Maybe if your tomatoes were more meaty. But This is looking so delicious. And I wish you guys could smell it because it smells amazing too. I actually think I'm going to have to spread my ragu out a little bit to finish this corner. I think that turned out to be just the right amount. So I'm going to add that tablespoon of tapioca to our bechamel, and then we will pour it over the top. All right, so now here we go with our bechamel. I'm going to grab a spatula. So we do not want to waste any of this. Now we can spread this out on top. So we're going to bake this at 320 degrees on the convection setting for about 40 minutes. If you don't have a convection oven, you want to cook it at about 350. So pop this in here. Set our timer. And I will keep an eye on it because the recipe says we want the top to be golden brown, but if it looks like it's browning too quickly, we can put some foil on top. So I will keep an eye on that. But while it's cooking, I am gonna clean up all of my messy dishes. So I did want to show you all, I'm about halfway through the bake time and our bechamel is getting nice and brown. So I am gonna top it with some foil. Our moussaka is ready to come out of the oven. Get that foil off. Pull it out. It looks wonderful. So now the hard part. This needs to sit for an hour before we cut into it because it's supposed to come out like nice slices, but if you cut into it too early, then it comes out all sloppy and messy. So we're gonna just let this sit for an hour. But while that's sitting, I thought for those of you interested in my Christmas stockings, I would give you an update. So here are the 3 stockings I showed you last time. And since then, I have made 2 more. I'm pretty proud of these. This was quite a fancy stitch for me. And this one was a stitch I really wanted to use, but I couldn't find a pattern that was already made. So I had to figure out the toe and how to do it in the round and the heel and everything. So I sort of used a few different patterns as guides and just came up with my own thing, but I think it turned out really beautiful. And I love this stitch. If you are into crochet, but you don't know, this is called the Harlequin stitch, and I just think it's beautiful. So there is an update on the stockings. I have 2 more people stockings to make and then 2 cat stockings. I am hoping to finish by Thanksgiving because that is when we normally decorate for Christmas. So I would like to have all of the stockings done to be out with all of our Christmas decorations. This has been cooling for an hour. So we are going to cut into this and hope it comes out in beautiful slices like it's supposed to. Look at that. Came out perfectly. Lost a little potato there putting it on the plate, but otherwise it came out so nice. Grab a fork. I'm really pleased with how this came out of the pan. Waiting the hour, I'm sure, definitely made a huge difference. But let's get in here, get a bite with all of our layers. Try not to lose my potatoes. All right. This is so good, especially with that meat layer, and it's so flavorful. The cinnamon really comes through. You never know that this was dairy free. Like, I just wouldn't even think about it were it not for the fact that I made it. But oh man, I will 100% make this again. It's so good. The potatoes and the eggplant both are just so tender and creamy. And then you have all those warm spices in the meat. Y'all, this is so good. And if you can have dairy, just make regular bechamel and put it on top. You don't have to have a dairy-free one like me. I think, you know what? I will look up a recipe for you guys that has the regular bechamel because I'm pretty sure this version for a moussaka normally has eggs in it to help it set. But oh, so good. So, winter, I will be making more of this, especially once we're into next year and we have eggplants again in the garden. But I'm really happy you guys were here with me while I tried a new recipe, and I'll leave a link down below for the recipe. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.